Shay looked left and right before abandoning the newborn baby in his hands in the bin. His wife had just given birth to twins after 12 long hours of labor, but one of the babies was deformed. Shay felt ashamed of the child and couldn't bring himself to raise or be associated with such a child. His wife, Itunu, was too weak after giving birth to know the atrocity her husband had committed. Hours later, when she finally woke up from a deep sleep, she was met with the teary eyes of her husband. She asked what the problem was, and Shay told her that one of their twins had passed away a few hours after delivery. Itunu couldn't believe her ears. She started to cry, questioning her choice of having a home birth. Shay assured her that not giving birth in the hospital wasn't the problem. Itunu immediately asked for the other twin baby, and Shay went into the nursery to carry the newborn twin. When he handed the baby to her, Itunu saw that the baby looked even more perfect. She kissed the baby's forehead and they named her Oral Lua. 14 years later, Oral Lua grew up to be a very beautiful but lonely girl. She grew up in a household filled with turmoil and strife. Her parents, Shay and Itunu, were constantly fighting, mostly because of her father's infidelity. This created an atmosphere of tension and sadness that overshadowed every aspect of Oral Lua's life. Despite the material comforts provided by her father's successful career as a plastic surgeon, Oral Lua felt a profound sense of loneliness and isolation. Her mother, once a vibrant and joyful woman, had been reduced to a mere shell of her former self. The constant betrayal and emotional pain caused by Shay's actions had taken a toll on her spirits, leaving her perpetually in tears and consumed by despair, with no room to pay attention to her daughter. Oral Lua watched helplessly as her mother's light faded, feeling powerless to intervene or offer any comfort in the face of such overwhelming sadness. Her father, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to the suffering he had caused. His focus was solely on his work and the image of perfection he sought to create in his patients. He would often criticize Oral Lua's appearance, pointing out flaws and imperfections that only served to deepen her sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. He made no effort to connect with his daughter on an emotional level, preferring instead to discuss potential cosmetic procedures that could improve her physical appearance. The only friend Oral Lua had was Kik, who wasn't really a friend. Kik was only interested in showing off the latest expensive jewelry her very rich parents got her or being rude to Oral Lua, reminding her that her parents were far richer than any other student's parents. As a result, Oral Lua didn't feel comfortable sharing her issues with Kik. She was just friends with her because she had no one else. As if what she was going through at home wasn't enough, Oral Lua became the target of bullies at school. She dreaded going to school every day, knowing that she would have to face a boy named T and his group of bullies, who seemed to take pleasure in tormenting her. It was hard for her to understand why T and his friends singled her out for their cruel taunts and actions. She was a quiet and studious girl who kept to herself most of the time, yet she became the target of their relentless bullying. It seemed like they took joy in making her miserable, finding new ways to humiliate and belittle her every chance they got. One of the most common ways T and his friends would bully Oral Lua was by making her lose her balance whenever she walked into the school bus in the morning. T would stick his legs out in the aisle, knowing that she would have to walk past him to find a seat, and whenever she did, he would intentionally block her path, causing her to lose her balance and attracting the laughter and ridicule of the other bullies on the bus. But the bullying didn't stop there. T and his friends found countless ways to make Oral Lua's life miserable at school. They would pour sachets of water on her hair, tear up her notebooks, and steal her belongings, all while laughing and taunting her. Oral Lua tried to fight back, but it only seemed to make the situation worse. The bullies had free rein to torment her, and they took full advantage of it. The constant bullying took a toll on Oral Lua's mental health and emotional well-being. She felt isolated and alone, with no one to turn to for help or support. Her parents were too wrapped up in their own lives to notice the pain she was going through, and the teachers at school seemed oblivious to the torment she was enduring on a daily basis. As the days went by, her spirit began to break under the weight of the relentless bullying. She would come home from school with tears in her eyes, her confidence shattered and her self-esteem in tatters. The once bright and enthusiastic student was now a shadow of her former self, afraid to speak up or stand up for herself against her tormentors. The breaking point came one day during break time when T and his group of bullies stole a bag and tore up all her notebooks. It was only a few weeks before their midterm test, and she knew that she would have a hard time catching up with her notes. She cried uncontrollably, feeling defeated and helpless in the face of the relentless bullying. That day, Oral Lua got home with a tearful face, but her parents were too busy fighting as usual to notice. So she went into her bathroom and took a warm bath. When she was done, she went in front of the big bathroom mirror to comb her hair, but something shocking happened. As Oral Lua was brushing her hair, her reflection in the mirror was smiling at her. When she noticed this, she stopped brushing for a moment, thinking she was hallucinating, only to see the person in the mirror waving and smiling at her. That was the moment it clicked in Oral Lua's brain. The reflection she saw in the mirror wasn't her. It was a different person with her exact face. Oral Lua almost fainted after this realization. She almost fell as she ran out of the bathroom to her room as fast as her legs could carry her. Oral Lua paced back and forth in her room, her heart racing with fear and confusion. She couldn't shake the image of her reflection in the mirror smiling back at her as if it were a separate entity. She felt like she was losing her mind. How could someone with her exact face exist inside a mirror? It was impossible, yet there was no denying what she had seen. As she lay in bed trying to make sense of it all, Oral Lua wondered if she was going crazy or if there was something more sinister at play. She couldn't come up with any logical explanation for what she had witnessed in the bathroom. The next morning, Oral Lua awoke with a sense of dread and a knot in her stomach. She tried to push the events of the previous night out of her mind, focusing instead on her daily routine. But as she was about to brush her teeth in front of the mirror, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that washed over her. What if the person in the mirror was still there, watching her with that uncanny smile? She thought about avoiding the mirror altogether, but after taking a deep breath, Oral Lua forced herself to look into the mirror. And there it was again, the reflection of another person identical to her in every way, staring back at her with a knowing glint in its eyes. Oral Lua shivered, feeling like she was being watched by a malevolent presence. She quickly finished brushing her teeth and rushed out of the bathroom, avoiding her reflection's gaze at all costs. She dressed up for school and waited for the school bus to arrive. When the bus finally came, T stood at the entrance, preventing Oral Lua from getting on. Her friend Kik, as usual, was too busy chatting with her friends to notice Oral Lua, but a boy named Toby, who was Kik's boyfriend, intervened. He stood up to T, demanding that he move out of the way and let Oral Lua pass. T, taken aback by Toby's boldness, backed down, and Oral Lua was able to get on the bus to school. Oral Lua smiled because, for the first time in her life, someone stood up for her. Ever since then, she developed a crush on Toby, Kik's boyfriend. For a moment, she forgot all her worries until she got to school and saw a mirror. She immediately looked away, afraid of what she might see. She couldn't focus on anything else. The image of a doppelganger was burned into her mind like a brand. The following day, Oral Lua avoided every mirror in the house. As she brushed her teeth and took her bath in high spirits, it was her school's anniversary. Every year, students came together to celebrate the school's existence and all its achievements over the years. Oral Lua had been looking forward to this day for weeks, carefully choosing the perfect red dress to wear to the party. As she entered the school, she couldn't help but admire how everyone had dressed up for the occasion. The hall was decorated, creating a festive atmosphere. She spotted her friend Kik across the room, who was already boasting about wearing the most expensive attire. Kik had always been one to show off her wealth, and Oral Lua couldn't help but roll her eyes at her friend's antics. Despite everything on her mind, Oral Lua was determined to enjoy the party and have a good time. The school principal took the stage and addressed the students, saying, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy," and the party officially began with music playing and drinks and food being served to the students and teachers. As the music filled the air, students and teachers alike started dancing, forming groups and pairs on the dance floor. Oral Lua and Kik were about to dance when they spotted Toby, Kik's boyfriend, making his way toward them. Kik abandoned Oral Lua without a second thought and ran to dance with Toby, leaving Oral Lua feeling lonely and out of place. Feeling a bit dejected, Oral Lua decided to grab a drink and find a quiet corner to watch the festivities from afar. She sipped her drink slowly, trying to shake off the feeling of being left behind by her friend. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over her. She looked up to see it was T, the school bully, standing in front of her. Oral Lua's heart raced, and as she was about to move away from that corner of the hall, T smirked at her and reached for his drink, purposefully spilling it on the floor in front of her. Without thinking, Oral Lua took a step forward but accidentally stepped on the spilled drink, causing her to stagger and lose her balance. She stepped on a long, beautiful red dress with her heel, and her dress tore. Before she could recover from the shock, her necklace made of gold beads broke, and the beads scattered all over the ground. The sound of Oral Lua's scream echoed through the hall, drawing the attention of everyone around. Some students started laughing, while others picked up their phones to record Oral Lua as she tried to pick up the beads on the floor. Toby saw what had happened and ran to help her pick up the beads. Some teachers also showed up, trying to help and asking her what had happened. T lied to them immediately, saying that Oral Lua had mistakenly stepped on her dress. As Oral Lua struggled to pick up the beads, even with Toby's help, she got frustrated and felt a mix of embarrassment and anger wash over her. She knew T had deliberately made her an object of mockery but felt no one would believe her. She burst into tears as she ran out of the hall, stumbling home, still in tears, her heart heavy with the shame and humiliation she had endured at the school party. As she stepped into the bathroom to wash away the remnants of the day, her gaze fell upon the mirror. She was about to avert her eyes when something inside her snapped. Instead of avoiding her reflection, Oral Lua drew closer to the mirror. There was the person again, still smiling at her. A sense of familiarity yet estrangement tugged at her heart. Mustering all her courage, Oral Lua spoke to the figure in the mirror. "Who are you? Are you real? How do you have my face?" To her astonishment, the figure replied, "My name is Ayam. I am your twin sister." Oral Lua gasped, "What? That's not possible. You are just my imagination." "I assure you, I am real," Ayam insisted. "You can ask our parents." Oral Lua's mind raced with a mix of disbelief and confusion. How could she have a twin sister she had never known? As night fell, Oral Lua knew she could not wait until morning to confront her parents with this startling revelation. As the dawn light began to filter through the curtains, Oral Lua headed downstairs from her room. She checked the window and discovered her father's car was not in the compound. A few minutes later, her mother came into the living room. Oral Lua greeted her and asked where her father was. Her mother, Itunu, told her that her father had an early morning surgery and had to leave at dawn. Oral Lua tried to wait for her father to return but was so eager to know the truth that she confronted her mother with the question that had been gnawing at her mind all night. "Mother, do I have a twin sister?" Her voice trembling, a look of shock washed over Itunu's face as she wondered why her daughter would ask such a question. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she sank onto the sofa, her body racked with silent sobs. "Yes, Oral Lua," she whispered. "You had a twin." Oral Lua's heart pounded in her chest. "I had a twin, but why didn't you ever tell me?" she demanded. Her mother's voice was soft and broken. "We wanted to forget that sad day, to make the pain go away. We thought it would be easier for us and you if we pretended it never happened. But you should have told me," Oral Lua protested. "I deserved to know." Her mother's eyes met hers, filled with sorrow. "I know, my darling. I am so sorry. What was she like?" Oral Lua asked, her curiosity and grief overwhelming her. "She was beautiful, I guess," her mother replied, her voice catching. "I didn't get to see her." Itunu burst into more tears and began to narrate the heartbreaking tale. Oral Lua listened, tears welling up in her own eyes. She learned that her twin sister had been born stillborn, leaving her with an unfillable void in her heart and the painful absence of a sibling. But if her sister had passed away, who was that in the mirror? A ghost? Oral Lua wondered to herself. Suddenly, the door crept open, and her father entered. When he realized his wife had told their daughter everything, his face turned red with anger. "Why did you do this?" he shouted at his wife, Itunu. "Why would you bring this up again?" Their argument escalated, their voices rising in accusation and anguish. Oral Lua stumbled to her feet and rushed into the bathroom. As Oral Lua stood before the mirror, a tear dropped from her eye, knowing now that Ayam was really her sister. She pleaded with her to stop crying. That was when Oral Lua asked her sister, "Why? Why are you here now and not many years ago? All these years I grew up lonely. Why didn't you find me then? Why now?" she cried. Her sister revealed that she had been watching over her, witnessing all her struggles and heartaches, and empathized with her pain.